So I was on the Climbing the Pocket podcast last night, boys. Our
Oh.
friends at Climbing the Pocket do a great job, football analytical breakdowns. You can find it if you want. It was the happy hour episode. You can find it via podcast, YouTube. And we got into the Vikings backup quarterback discussion, which I would love to bring my sort of thought and epiphany to the table for you guys. It's kind of amazing how we've gone from in like January, February, if somebody were to have asked you, all right, what do you think about Sean Mannion coming back as the Vikings backup quarterback? Like the break glass in case of emergency, Kirk Cousins is out. Like Sean Mannion is going to be your veteran backup quarterback again. All of us would have been like, why? What is the point? Like why? Why just get somebody who's better or more dynamic or more experienced? What's the point of having Sean Mannion as the first line of defense if Kirk Cousins goes down?
Right.
And you fast forward now to the first couple days of September, the end of training camp, as we get into the final stretch until the regular season, and we were basically begging for Sean Mannion in some cases. I say that somewhat facetiously, but like, please just get Mannion back. Oh my God, Jake Browning was so bad in the preseason. What are your thoughts on Sean Mannion? I know that he's practice squad and Kellen Mond is roster, so maybe Mond is QB2, but Mannion's there if needed. If something happens and you got a week to plan, like you could activate Sean Mannion.
Right.
I don't know how they're going to play it, but now that we've had time to digest it, are you good with them just bringing Mannion back, or would you guys rather have seen them trade for a Nick Foles or a Joe Flacco or somebody who's like played in a Super Bowl before, for instance?
Well, the thing that concerned me the absolute most, and it's been resolved now, but I didn't have the confidence in Spielman and the crew to do it, but they did, was to accept the fact that a guy that they signed as an undrafted free agent out of Washington, and by the way, at the time for that position paid a lot to, Jake Browning was cut. Like my first concern was they're going to try and force this. That like they're going to look at those 3 games and be like, yeah, they were bad, but our evaluations of Browning, and there are things, especially when it comes to quarterback, about the Vikings that really worry me. So the most important thing was to remove the temptation to be like, yeah, Jake Browning, because they went into, no matter what they say, and they'd lie now, they went into a mini camp with a clear-cut plan that he was the backup quarterback. Like that was their goal. So it's not that I'm thrilled, to be clear, it's not that I'm thrilled about Mannion, but if I had to like layer this in why I don't mind the move, one is they moved on from a guy that I was suspicious they wouldn't, and it sounds like they actually decided in signing Mannion to the practice squad that Browning wouldn't be brought back at all. Hallelujah. I'm shocked by that one. So that's the most important thing to me. And that box has been checked because Browning's now gone. The second one is I just don't want Mond to play because I don't want to ruin him. And with a 3rd round pick, there are some people who are firmly convinced, hey, Mond can come in, he can run around, it's going to be fine. I don't know about that. So I just like the security blanket, no matter who the veteran is. This is not hey, they should play Sean Mannion. This is the Vikings tend to do things, and I'm still not convinced that they wouldn't play Mond, but the Vikings tend to do things quarterback-wise, especially, that don't make a ton of sense. So I think they're moving in the right path of not screwing things up royally here.
Yeah, but here's where I'm at with this. Now that I've had time to sort of digest this, all right, this is how it played out. They made the right move in determining that Jake Browning he can't come into an NFL game. If he looked that confused and skittish in a preseason game, imagine what's going to happen when you face NFL defenses scheming against you all week, right? He was just overwhelmed. I'm kind of shocked by how overwhelmed he was, considering he played Power 5 college football and made like 55 starts or 60 starts. Or like he made more starts than almost any quarterback mathematically can over 4 years at Washington. And he still just looks completely overwhelmed in a preseason game. Maybe he figures it out and catches on as a backup and holds a clipboard for a while. But my point is, they're screwed if Sean Mannion has to play games. I don't think they're as screwed if Kellen Mond has to play games, even if it's before he's ready. Like if you're asking me right now, and you can blow me up for this, maybe I'm wrong on this, but if you told me right now, all right, Kirk Cousins is out for a month, and You got 4 games. You can either start Sean Mannion for 4 games or Kellen Mond, as raw as he is, and his mechanics are still a work in progress. Who gives you a better chance to score points and win games? I actually think it's Kellen Mond. And I'm not advocating for Kellen Mond just being thrown into the fire.
Yep.
But we've seen Sean Mannion. He's an assistant coach. That's really what he is.
Yeah.
He's not meant to play in a game and do anything other than hand the ball off 35 times to Dalvin Cook and Alex Madison.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I don't have his stats in front of me, but like, didn't he throw 2 interceptions and like completed 50% of his passes in the one game he did play?
Yeah, he threw a couple picks. Yeah,
I mean, it was really bad.
He knows how to. He's not good. He knows how to run a game. The problem with Mond is
But what does that mean? He threw 2 interceptions and almost train wrecked.
Jake Browning shows you what happened when you can't run a game. You literally
but can Mannion run a game?
Down your pants leg. You are. If he's told what to do, here's the thing. That Bears game was a game where they had their playoff position locked up. So if Mannion plays, you would definitely have to orchestrate it very differently from a normal Cousins start. But here's the thing with mine. You're rolling the dice that he can do, that he can run around and that he can make plays and that he can score. And you know what? You might be right. The problem is if you're wrong, you are going to A, set him back, and B, you're going to cause the problem of, oh my God, now his confidence is shot. Now you got to get that back. Now you got to work with him. And look, he's a 3rd round pick too. I mean, if he was a 1st round pick, this debate would not be a debate. I mean, if this was Fields, he would be behind Cousins, and if he had to play, he's playing. But I think that there's a reason why Mond dropped to the 3rd round, and in watching him in the preseason, there is still a rigidity to his game, and I think we think, oh, he could run around, but this league is really damn good. What I'm saying is I would rather throw Mannion to the Wolves than Mond. Browning would have just been a complete cluster bleep, and the Vikings, I'm big on the Vikings moving on when they've screwed up, and they have problems doing that.
But it sounds like what you're saying, like you're talking from the perspective of preserving Kellen Mond's long-term chances of being a starting quarterback by not train wrecking him, by not throwing him into a fire he's not ready for, right?
Correct.
I mean, like it's like, you know, the Twins threw Carlos Gomez into the fire, and it kind of ruined him until he kind of figured it out for a couple of years, but you know, he should have seen minor league pitching more.
Yep.
So I hear you on that front, but if I switch the perspective from what's best for Kellen Mond to what's the best way the Vikings can win a game if Kirk Cousins can't play for a month, what I'm saying is they're screwed if Sean Mannion has to play in a football game.
If Kirk Cousins can't play for a month, they're screwed. I'm talking about literally you're in quarantine. I'm not talking about he got COVID and now he's sick and my God, he can't play for an extended period of time. I am talking about Sunday morning. Hey, Kirk Cousins was in close contact. We got concerns. He can't play. I don't want Mond to have to then just play. If it's a month, all bets are off. I would probably go out and try and find a different quarterback if I was trying to win games.
Yeah, I don't think you wreck a guy in one game. Like you can game plan something up. Mond offers more skills and abilities to help you win a game or two because you can trick up a scheme for him too. You know, you don't have to wreck him. You can they tricked up a couple games for Cousins when he led the league in interceptions. They were like, all right, dude, coming out of the bye, instead of you rapid fire throwing 3 picks every game like you have in the first month and a half, we're just going to hand off about 40 times here against the Packers.
Right, but here's the problem:
and we're going to protect you, and you make $35 million.
Is you can be put into quarantine like on a Sunday morning. I can't trick up the game plan then. It's too late. It's just too. There's too many variables here that the Vikings could screw up that I don't want them to. That I much prefer the puppet show of moving the parts around, getting Browning out, Mannion in, activate him, have him hand off a ton, and then I don't want to have to worry about Kellen Mond being any part of my plan in 2021.
Yeah.
I want it to be a red shirt year.
Yeah, in a perfect year, it would be a red shirt year. The other thing I was thinking about is Rick Spielman, you know, is he a little gun shy? Because he's made quite a few borderline panic trades around this time, the last 5 or 6 years, where, you know, 1st round pick for Sam Bradford. And I'm not, that was the right move. And Bradford was great. That might have been the best year of Bradford's career. I mean, that dude was like a 300-yard machine on a regular basis.
Agreed.
So I'm I get what they were doing there. In retrospect, the way that season finished, would you rather have the first round pick back? Of course. But they traded a 5th round pick for, was it Kyrie Vedvik at one point around this time. They traded a 2nd round pick for Unique Ngakoue around this time. They traded a 4th round pick for Chris Herndon a couple days ago. And I just wonder if that's where Spielman finally drew the line. He's like, all right, I'll make kind of a panic trade for a tight end, but I'm not going to make a panic trade for a quarterback. We're just going to we're going to bring Sean Mannion back. I'd rather just bring him back and hope to God that Cousins stays off the injured list and COVID list all season. Because they could have traded for a more established, better backup quarterback, but he clearly drew a line when it comes to draft capital and said, all right, we'll trade for Herndon, but we're not gonna make 2 panic trades for backups.
And Phil, when it comes to quarterback, don't forget because we talk about this from our perspective of what we would do and what we think they should do, blah blah blah. There's a chance that they think internally that Kirk Cousins will sign an extension probably, and that they'll get the cap, that his cap hit for 2022 down. So like we don't know how they're thinking, really. Some of the surface stuff makes perfect sense. But like when it comes to the long-term viability, like I think we all look at Cousins' cap hit and like what Cousins has or hasn't done, and we all say, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to probably try and trade him because there would definitely be a taker for 2022. But remember, Rick made an investment in Kirk, and Rick is a stubborn dude. And there is a case to be made, statistically, certainly, that Kirk's a good quarterback. So he very well might be thinking, why would I trade for Drew Lock if I have to pay too much when I've still got Kirk? So like that might be that's where Rick's thinking sort of crosses a line that I probably don't get.
Because it's almost like, well, if I bring in, well, Drew Lock is even a different type because Foles and Flacco are just backups. They're highly paid backups. And they've got Super Bowl credibility, so you feel a little bit better. Flacco was a disaster, and so was Foles last year. But Drew Lock is a guy that, like, if you traded for him, it's not a quarterback competition by any means, but like he's a former 2nd round pick and he's young, right? So I feel like Rick has insulated Cousins in the 3.5 years he's been here by not having real, actual, viable backups with upside until now with Kellen Mond. But even this year, it's like Kellen Mond's not really a threat to capture the crown until 2022. Trading for Drew Lock is basically setting yourself up for a Drew Lock, Kellen Mond quarterback competition for 2022 that costs you a lot less money than Kirk's $45 million cap hit. And I think they've just tried to avoid that. They just don't. They want Kirk to know, hey, man, you're the guy. We love you. There's no competition here. There's not, there's nobody that's going to just like take your job if you have a bad month. But I think it's time for them. At this point, it's time for them to start planning for 2022 at that position. So if Drew Lock can be had for a 5th or a 6th round pick, do it and put him in the fire in 2022. Don't not do it because you want to protect Kirk Cousins, I guess is what I'm saying.
But you're right. They've done everything that they possibly can. They had a quarterback, a viable, like maybe option from the Calgary Stampeders of the CFL. And they're like, you would just be a backup. He's like, hell no, I'm here to compete. Which, by the way, you want to hear, like, what team doesn't want to hear, I'm here to compete? And the Vikings are like, whoa.
Calm down, buddy. With Kirk. No aspirations at this position.
But I mean, this is what would have been so intriguing if they had pulled the trigger on a trade to get to trade up in the draft to get Fields, right? Like this is where it would have been because Justin Fields changes the dynamic completely. Now it's like, okay, this gets a 1st round pick. 1st round picks play a lot. If Kirk struggles, there's options there. Mond is incredibly safe to me. Like Mond's a 3rd round pick. He might be good, but he ain't going to be good in 2021. And so the Fields dynamic that I would have loved to have seen, and probably part of the reason why they attempted to trade by lowballing teams was because of this constant fear, which is a weird one, this constant fear that Kirk might be offended. And what is that going to affect his play? Like there's got to be some thinking of, if we have a guy who really competes with Kirk might. What's going to happen to Kirk?
The Patriots actually had a bunch of different replacements lined up for Brady, right? They drafted Garoppolo in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
Who was that? Was it that Arkansas quarterback? It was like a 3rd round pick. was a bust.
Ryan
That was
Mallett, like 10
Ryan
years
Mallett.
ago.
Ryan
That
Mallett.
was like 10 years ago, right? But like he was like a second or third round pick,
Yep.
and Brady loved it. I mean, I think and Jacoby Brissett was a mid round pick in there somewhere.
Well, think about the psychology of the people you're talking about here when it comes to starting quarterbacks, because that's a great point.
They wanted to motivate Tom, right?
And Tom was like, "Bring it on," and Kirk's like, What'd you guys do to me? I thought we were friends."
Yeah. Send out auto tweet praising Kellen Mond, welcoming him to the team, but secretly seething.
Did you guys notice that? And I don't know what to read into this, but it is an interesting thing. So Mond against the Chiefs, I thought played pretty well, right? I mean, he came in and played well.
Yeah, he wasn't overwhelmed,
and he definitely ascended in those 3 preseason games. I thought he made progress. Somebody asked, I think it was Chris Thomas in the Pioneer Press, asked Kirk flat out, "Hey, Mond played pretty well. That you scored some touch." Kirk talked about the offense as a whole. Never said Mond's name. Never like addressed it as Kellen did play. I mean, he's coming along. I mean, it was the perfect chance to be like, you know what? It's not here yet, but
and
he's getting there.
You know what? I know that people are going to crush us for always finding a way to rip Kirk here, but the biggest thing I question with Kirk is his leadership and ability to effectively connect and communicate with all of his teammates in the way that Brady does, in the way that other great quarterbacks do, right? Like that you're the guy that people are going to take a football bullet for, that they'll die on the hill for you. And Kirk's teammates don't give off that vibe. It's not that they all hate him. I'm not saying that. But if given a chance to praise the backup quarterback that's young and may at some point like be a threat to your job, a real leader in that spot, to me, would take the opportunity and say, you know what, Kellen's been great. We love having him here. Like, in essence, you're saying, I'm the man, I'm the leader of this group, and I am also putting my arm around Kellen Mond, whether he's a threat to me or not. Like, he's part of the club, and it's almost like, Kirk does the opposite, where he'll deflect and pivot to like the team as a whole and go into cliche mode. It's like, just kind of comes off. It just kind of comes off shady. Like if I'm Kellen Mond and I hear a specific question asked about me to Kirk, and he doesn't even address me in the answer, it just comes off like, what? Why wouldn't you give me some credit there, bro? Like, you're supposed to be my mentor, right? It feels like he's threatened in some ways.
Oh yeah, well,
when he answers it that way,
it's interesting too because like Brett Favre was too, but he had a different way of going about his business, and I think part of it is
yeah.
I think part of it is especially like at the podium, your body language and like what you say, and like Brett had a thing where it was just clear Brett was in charge. I mean, Brett was petty and jealous and all of those things, but he had a much different way of going about it, where Kirk always seems like he's mad, he's threatened. Where Favre was like, I'm still the best here. And I think you want either a quarterback that embraces the team and is like, you know what, Kellen played great, or like Favre, where it's like, okay, dude, you're still Brett Favre, aren't you? Kirk ends up in this sort of weird between world, and the answers are always like, so like, what's your answer?
Nothing's ever his fault.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's just,
but you know what? So if you, Phil, this is a great subject. If you put Favre and Kirk back to back as far as how they reacted to things and like stripped away the body language and the actual like words, they're very similar in some ways. Brett was always talking about, hey, Brett, on that 15th pick you threw today, what happened? Well, Javon, was supposed to curl out, but I mean, we did a little, I mean, that's I guess. And it wasn't his fault either, but he went about it so much differently. And I just think, and this is not going to be fair, and I will admit this fully, Brett Favre, in the way he went about the answers, was cocky and likable in some ways. And Kirk, and this might be Kirk's fault, it might not be. Kirk doesn't come off nearly as likable. And that's just a flat out blanket assessment that I believe to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Kirk's teammates don't love him the way that Brett Favre's teammates loved him. Mm-hmm. And that's a fact. It's the same with Tom Brady. And I'm just trying to think of like Aaron Rodgers. I think a lot of his teammates love him. I also think there's a little bit of a prickly.
Yes.
There's a reason why that team has underachieved.
Yes.
With a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think his personality, it's a little more of a Jay Cutler personality, but he's more talented and doesn't throw as many interceptions.
Aaron is probably
he's like a better Jay Cutler.
And yes, and Aaron's probably a little bit more like if Kirk was was going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Like
I
if
agree with that.
if you bring Aaron's play down a notch or 3, I think you're like, I really don't like that guy, and he's not that good.
Yeah, they are very different personalities. I think Aaron feels like he's like a most interesting man in the world trapped in a football player's life, right? Like
Yes.
he likes football, but if he could pick a new life, it would be the Jeopardy host. He'd be like Anthony Bourdain or something.
Who was the Twins pitcher you covered who was it Slowey, who was like super smart?
Yes.
And good, but not great. And so it sort of was like, okay, dude, you're smart. That's great.
He would always kind of clown the reporters.
But that's like if Aaron wasn't as good as Aaron is, I think that would be exactly the approach, which would be, dude, can you just shut up for a second?
Yeah. Well, these last 5 minutes of just completely unfair Kirk Cousins hate and ripping brought to you by Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Let's talk about risk management here, okay? Establishing and promoting a culture of risk management with an emphasis on workplace safety and loss prevention can help your business run more efficiently and avoid errors that could harm your business down the line. So in a competitive business world where turning a profit or hiring quickly is often the highest priority, it's tempting to just sweep risk management under the rug. But you don't want to, because that could be a mistake for your business. Find out more about how Federated can help you at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right, it's time for Old Tweets Exposed, where Declan digs into the Twitter archives and finds horribly wrong or misguided tweets from the three of us.
Yes. Today's edition of Old Tweets Exposed is Backup Edition. Backup. I typed everyone's handle in and put backup in to the old Twitter machine.
Oh, no.
So Judd Zolgad and Phil Mackey have a handcuff take. I have a backup discussion, but it's not football related. Okay. So we will start with Judd. This is maybe almost exactly 1 month ago.
Oh. But Jake Browning is making the most of an opportunity that is golden. And he went, in my opinion, Dex, into camp as the second QB. So the depth chart going into camp, I think, was Cousins, Browning, Mond, Stanley. But I don't know that Browning had it wrapped up at that time. And unless the Vikings are going to go out and get a veteran quarterback to back up Cousins because they're fearful that Kirk is going to miss games and that they want a veteran in that role, Browning has if they're going to stick with their current quarterback room, Browning has this wrapped up. And it's been impressive and good for him. Good for him because this is tough. Like, I mean, he's out there throwing every single pass. You're supposed to have 4 QBs, Dex. So Jake Browning gets it, and Jake Browning is getting a great opportunity and making the most of that.
Judd?
I think Judd wins.
You okay?
I think Judd wins.
No. No, I'm not. Oh, my God. That's so embarrassing now.
Oh, man.
I mean, you know what? Unlike Kirk, I'm only going to blame one person for that awful take, me.
Wow.
There's no excuse.
So excited about Jake Browning.
Well, he was doing a good job at the time, and he was the only quarterback for a few days. But
he had a good
talk
practice.
About that. Children,
he had one
kids,
good practice.
That's the definition of being over your skis right there. Oh, my God.
Wow. Oh. Can Declan or I top that? I don't know. This might just be a race for second here.
Oh, my.
All right. So here is a Phil Mackey Jake Browning take, also not from long ago, July 31st, 2021. Jake Browning is 100 starting at least a game for the Vikings this season. Isn't he? And I'm here for it.
Okay, the I'm here for it is probably what puts this into the Old Tweets Exposed bin.
Yep.
Saying that a backup quarterback is going to start a game isn't necessarily an old tweet exposed, but saying like I get my popcorn ready, I'm here for it. Yeah, and I will say like the psychology behind that tweet is kind of interested to see Jake Browning looks pretty good in practice. Let's see what he looks like in a game. Now, yeah, I'm good on that.
Well,
good on that.
I know we said Judd wins, but I have a backup tweet that has nothing to do with football. And has everything to do with baseball. It was about 10 years ago almost, and Phil Mackey, I think, is going to crown me the winner just for what I tweeted out here. November 20th, 2011, Ryan Doman will be a perfect backup for Joe Mauer, hashtag winning.
No, honestly, this is not a hot take at all whatsoever. Ryan Domit was a really solid, just rock solid offensive catcher who could also play first base and right field.
I guess.
I think you're forgetting the Ryan Domit effect here. Let me pull up his numbers for you.
He was a fine, I guess, you're not wrong that he was a fine offensive guy, but he was like one of the worst defensive catchers in baseball. He was a terrible defensive player.
Yeah.
So,
And
so
hashtag winning.
So they signed Ryan Domit in free agency in 2012. He hit 275 with a 460 slugging percentage, 18 homers, 75 RBIs, and played a bunch of different positions. I think you're exonerated here. He was. He was a rock solid backup for Joe Mauer.
I win.
He was also a starter at one point there. Yeah, Judd by far. By far.
Sorry, Judd.
Right. Jake Browning just gets it.
Gets it.
Speechless right now.
In fairness, I think we used to do a similar segment like 10 years ago on the Royce and Mackey show. And I remember doing like 10 minutes on how Christian Ponder is just a get it guy. Just a get it guy. So,
yeah, but you know, that wouldn't have been so bad if I just seen a tweet. But when I have to hear my long rambling Jake Browning is great, I win. There's nothing to say. There's no one to blame but me.
Just own that L.
I raise my hand. I take responsibility. I turn in my Jake Browning card.
All right. Well, we gotta go.
Gotta go.
We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. So tomorrow, what do we got? We're doing 51st dates on Romcom Rewind.
Watched it yesterday.
All right. Be a good time. And then we'll probably have some takes on that Gopher football game as well tonight when they upset Ohio State. When they win that game when they win that game with a last minute field goal.
The people want more Gophers talk.
Actually, a lot of people did hit us up. Yeah.
Yeah, we saw that.
So we'll take note. We appreciate. Now it's kind of up to them. Like if they just get smoked in this game, I think a lot of you guys might not be as excited to hear Gopher football talk. But let us know. We'll talk about whatever you want, within reason.
Jake Browning.
Roll the boat. Skyma.
Roll the boat. Skyma. Go Gophers. See you guys tomorrow.